What's up YouTube? This is AC3KGT. Come up with an update. It's I don't have a lot to talk about right now. I got a couple projects I'm working on, and one of them is the intake manifold. I was wondering why the car was running like crap, and I really haven't wanted to drive it because it basically you can't even throttle it. You get a little bit of throttle and you get nothing. It runs like shit. And the engine was running good before I put the intake manifold on. So after further inspection, I find out that you have a hairline crack between the intake adapter plate and the spacers caused by intake adapter is sitting on the water neck. On this engine, this thing was designed for, that water neck is not there at 6G75, 3.8 there. On the 6G72, the water neck is sitting right next to the lower intake manifold, and the plate kind of sits on it a little bit. So I got two fixes I'm working on. It's one which won't be available till after the next year, in January, which I really don't want to push it that far because I'm trying to get the car ready to go to the IFO. The other is to try to raise the stack of spacers with a couple of gaskets, just a couple thousand, because we're talking about it is a very, very small gap. Pretty sure I can fill up that space with a couple of spacers to get it to seal. The reason why I want to remove the water neck and move its location is twofold. So I can actually get rid of one of the spacers, drop it down. The other is I can't service coolant in the engine if I need to without removing the intake. Now, it's not a very hard job to do. It's like 5 minutes and the intake comes off. But if we can do it without removing the intake, I'm going to do it. And I got the part I was going to use with it to fix that problem. One, I have to delete the water neck on it, so I'm getting a guy to weld up the original thermostat housing, chopping off the fill neck and then welding the plate there. The other part of that fix is this. It's an in-hose radiator fill neck. It should still, where I'm going to put it is right next to where the fill neck is, further down the hose. It goes in the radiator hose. So you got to chop that radiator hose and cut a little bit gap in it, put your radiator hose in and clamp it down, which kind of feels a little bit jerry-rigish, but it'll work. And then the other project I have going on is somebody happened to have a BMX front end or players, most likely a Rapid Duraflex, that I'm fixing up to put on the car. I wanted to put a body kit on it anyway, but I've been more focused on mechanical side stuff. So I still got to fit this thing, but it needed some repair done to it. It had been sitting around outside for a while, and so I had to fix some cracks and stuff like those small minor cracks in it, and sand it back down, and it's actually looking pretty good now. Right, so I'll show you what's going on. Alright, I really don't like this freaking lighting, but that got overhead lighting, sorry. Alright, I'll show you this first. Well, we got some early 2000s vibes here. This right here is that BMX body kit, and that's the front bumper. I had it on the table, but I have the intake and the other parts for the Holly intake on there right now, taking up space. I had some cracks that were right here. Kind of spidered it from here to here. You can see that's where it was at. This right here looks like somebody had taken a grinder to it. Now I had to put a little bit of filler in it to get it smoothed out, and now it's okay. It'll work. And then over here, this corner, somebody hit it with a grinder again and chopped down a bunch of it. So, you know, issues. We're back. It's kind of cold out here. It's early in the morning, but I want to kind of show you what's going on with the intake plenum and show you exactly the problem areas I'm dealing with right now. As you can see, car's right here. Just haven't been able to do much with it because waiting on parts. That's kind of the issue. And I don't have but a couple of days a week that I can actually work on it because I'm working pretty much all day for the rest of the week, so I get 2 days to work on it. So what I'll do is I'll order parts at the beginning of the week, and by the time the end of the week is here, they're here. But do what you can, man. I really don't have the time. Sometimes not enough money to get it done. You know what? Let me show you what's going on. It's not exactly the best angle I can get to, but right here, that crack right there is enough to cause a vacuum leak. And it extends all the way to right here. This right here is where it's actually sealed up. It's not causing problem, but it's right here. You can see it, there's a gap there, and you can see daylight through it, especially on this end right there. It's where my finger is at. On the rest of the engine, it's sealed. It's right on the plenum. So you got 2 cylinders that are leaking like a freaking sieve. Right there. That should be enough where I can put a couple of gaskets in there and take that space out. Alright. This right here is a problem. See that? That is the radiator fill neck that is getting sat on by the intake plate. It's causing it to lift up. That's the problem. Right here. Right there is your radiator fill neck. That's how close this thing is on that radiator fill neck, which is why I'm trying to move it to here, in this area on the radiator hose, between here and here. I'll probably have to fit the actual coolant head in here, and it should still be basically at the highest point of the engine to get to bleed the coolant. But yeah, that is my major freaking malfunction right here, is that radiator cap right there. You can see down here. Let's see. Can I get some light down there? But yeah, that's all the intake is now. There's my resistors. I need to get those covered up a little bit, but I'm trying to get the engine running again. And I wasn't really having issues with those resistors. There you go. Get you the bird's eye view. So that's what's going on with the engine and why I have not been driving it around. I literally cannot do it right now. So as you can see, that's the reason why. Other than that, I'm trying to, trust me, I'm trying to get it to go to the IFO. It's freaking freezing out here. 22nd. It's the last IFO in Chandler, and I've been wanting to get this car ready to go for a long time now. But nothing ever works as planned when you're dealing with cars, especially when you're trying to basically develop something. Not like anybody else in the US has been putting that on there. As far as the company says, I'm the first one to attempt to put it on the 6G72. So they're okay with the 6G75, and you could tell that it was not made for this engine because of fitment issues on parts that weren't originally there on the 6G75. That water neck is on the other side of the engine. It's more like the engine's flipped around, and the water neck is in a slightly different location, and it's not a problem on the 6G75. It is a problem in the 6G72 with that water neck being right there. But it's not that big of an issue. I think a couple of gaskets, which honestly should probably be there in the first place. I'm going to put like one gasket on the east side of the spacers, which apparently I haven't been doing that, and it had been working, so I got away with it for long enough. Now it's going to get fixed for real. Put a gasket in between each spacer. It should lift it up just enough to get that clearance, to get that gap filled, and the engine sealed up, and we should be good to go. With that being said, hope you guys enjoy the update. I'm sorry I haven't been able to do more driving videos or post it on Instagram like I should. But that's why. It's because I'm doing weird stuff with this engine that really hasn't been done. I'm running into more issues than normal. Some of them are user caused. This car probably would have been fine, but if I'd have just swapped the TPS on it, because I was having a bucking issue, and I found out why. This is what caused this whole fiasco. Car was bucking, would run fine, go to take off, and you get about to that second mailbox right there on the right, and it would go and it couldn't accelerate. So I go to do data logging on it, and my TPS is showing up 84.5% at idle. That's why it's bucking. The computer's getting told that you're at like full throttle, but your butterfly valve is basically shut. So causing a bucking issue with the ECU. ECU can't fuel it. So I go to look up the cost of the TPS sensor. It's $200. I'm like, I'm already going to replace the intake adapter, put this new intake on there. And I was deciding whether or not to try to cut off the intake and then put the Q45 throttle body in there. Well, with this TPS sensor came up, $200 for the TPS sensor. Literally cheap for me to just buy the GM throttle body, ISC and TPS bolted on. redo the wiring, which doesn't cost anything to redo the wiring. I've already got it set up with bullet connectors. You can just pop them off and pop them on if you need to figure it out, and they're waterproof. So that's why I like that setup, because if you do happen to change things, you can just rewire it. Just pull them out, figure out which one goes where, put the other half on the new set, crimp them down, put them in there, you're good to go. Literally significantly cheaper to just replace it with the GMLS throttle body. So I bought a 95mm throttle body, put it on there, and got it wired up. Now I'm having issues with fitment issues with the 67.7 to it, and that intake adapter for the 67.5. Well, I was already going to replace it anyway, so it was just a matter of which throttle body do I use. Cheaper to use the GMLS throttle body. So that's what happened. That's what this decision I made, and you got to do what you got to do. So, and which is actually nice, if TPS ever happens to go out again on the LS throttle body, guess what? It's $12. American parts, made right here in America, huh? The Q45 TPS was over $200. You tell me, what would you do? Literally, the whole throttle body was $85. With the TPS, IAC, and everything in it. Just the Q45 TPS was $200. Tell me what you would have done. You probably would have done the exact same thing I did. Like, hey, it's only 3 wires, I'll hook them up. It'd take me 5 minutes of just a little research to match up which wire goes where, crimp them, put them in there, and the engine's good to go. So I'm starting to get off the point here, but hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it's not much, just an update video, but I'll see you guys later, and this is AZ3K GT signing out. Peace.